It's been a full day already, and but it's a good thing. And as we always do, we will start with pledge, and Brad will lead us.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it's great to see a full house. We have lots of people coming to see us these days. We were getting pretty lonely there for a while, and now we're very happy to hear from the community, and we have a few things to get to before we do that. And I just broke my pen. Modifications, Brad, anything? Wow, okay. That is unusual. And the agenda is pretty much as it usually is, but we are going to move up the student reps so they can speak. And since LACS is
very alone.
So that was an awe, but we're always happy to hear from LACS. And please go ahead.
Great. So
There we go.
the Facing History class is having our. Okay, sorry, this table is broken. Is having the Middle East debates next week. Tuesday, in the morning, we will have our opening speeches, and I guess I should really say what the Middle East debates are. For the past about 8 weeks, we have been preparing to take on the character of one of the Middle East leaders, and also including Russia and the U.S. And then next week we will debate on the different situations in the Middle East, and then at the end we will come to a resolution. And so after school on Wednesday from 3:30 to 5:30, there is going to be another debate session, and everyone's welcome, and we're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Sorry, the guy I was drinking water. Go ahead.
Thank you. At IHS, one of the main events that are going on this week is Social Justice Week. And for those of you who don't know, Social Justice Week so it started today and ends Friday. Basically, every period in York Lecture Hall, different speakers who represent different sort of social justice groups come in to talk about the issues that they tackle every day. And a lot of teachers have been taking students in their classes to miss class and actually go see these presentations, which is a really good opportunity for students to actually get involved with a lot of issues like going green, gender equality, stuff like that. So it's really great to see a lot of students become more active and more involved and better educated in a lot of social justice issues around the world. And also a senior event happened this Friday, Casino Night. And basically, Casino Night is when around 30 adults every year, which includes a lot of high school teachers, they help set up they help transform the cafeteria into this high-class sort of casino. There's a lot of props, and all the teachers, they dress up and stuff. And it's actually, there's a lot of effort that goes into the production, and this year over 100 seniors attended the event, so it was a pretty big event. And what I took away from the event is that I should never go to a casino. Yeah. So I think it was really fun and a great opportunity for the seniors to get together and have a lot of fun.
So the first rehearsal of Hairspray is actually tonight, and I know that the law students are really excited to start working on the production. Some student council updates. They are currently doing their Krispy Kreme fundraiser. It ends tomorrow, and it is $8 a box for 12 dozen donuts. And coincidentally enough, I actually have a donut order form sheet here. If anybody would be interested in buying donuts to support student council, let me know. They've also begun planning for the spring prep rally. It'll be hosted on the last day of school, so field day. And instead of having it in the gym, they're going to have it in the turf. Just a lot of the same activities as usual will happen. The band will play. They will feature instead of fall sports, winter and spring teams, and the Nunchucks Club will perform. And also, as kind of a special edition, if they can find a skunk mascot. They would like to do a dance-off between the bear mascot and the skunk mascot.
All right.
Okay, so for some sports updates, boys basketball won Section 4 for the first time in many years, so many congratulations to them. Boys swimming completed the New York State competition last weekend, and many swimmers had their best times, and Carter Anderson placed 12th overall in the state in the 500-meter freestyle. And so, as you all know, spring sports have begun, and this year there's no JV softball team. And for some updates from Captain's Council, so Captain's Council is a group of captains that meet with the athletic director to discuss issues surrounding sports in the school. And so they're currently selling t-shirts and other items to increase school spirit. And Captain's Council and Student Council are working to determine if a new mascot, if the school should have a new mascot, based off of a survey that has been circulating. And so this survey asks students to choose 3 adjectives that best describe IHS, and then Captain's Council will choose a mascot based off of these adjectives.
So this past weekend, 8 IHS students participated in the Puerto Rican Hispanic Youth Leadership Institute Leadership Conference. And it was this weekend in Albany, and it was the culmination of a 3-month leadership conference learning about the legislative process, and then they hold a mock assembly in Albany with 200 students from all over New York State. It's specifically for Latinos, and you have to apply to get in. And as a really big accomplishment, our own Henrique de Lemos was the distinguished speaker of the House, and the students are looking forward to presenting to the board, you guys, at a future date. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thanks. Thanks, Ithaca. So we will move on to public comment period. I know we have folks that have not been here before. I've had to do this 2 or 3 times in a row now. We do have a policy regarding public comment. We're always happy to hear from folks that want to come to speak to us. Everybody gets a chance to speak. Hopefully, as we always want to get through the list, but we do have policies regarding that. 3 minutes per person. We'll try to keep them moving. There are cameras and microphones in the ceiling. Your voice will be picked up. You will get on camera. You don't have to come sit up here if you don't wish to. If you do want to come up and sit, that's fine. But we'll go down through the list. There are a few rules, and certainly you can speak. I don't have my glasses, but presentations should be brief as possible. Each speaker will be permitted to speak for 3 minutes. Speakers may really come on any matter related to district business. We all care about climate change, but that's really, we can't fix that here. So keep it local. The board cannot and will not permit public discussions involving school, individual district personnel, or students. It's not done. This is not that venue to do that. The venue to do that is by a written, certainly we take in writing, speak to administrators, etc., but we don't discuss individuals in this setting. But glad to hear about anything else that you wish to speak to. We're going to go through the list. We will get started. This is not a debate. It's not a discussion. If you have an opportunity to speak to us, board will have an opportunity to respond. The board may or may not respond to anything that's said tonight. We have opportunities to do that in more open meetings. That's not this meeting. So we'll go ahead and get started. I am the board president, and so it's my responsibility to keep things moving. There will be a clock on the. I'm getting a nod from Jennifer. There will be a timer. Just 3 minutes is actually quite a long time, so it's an opportunity to say whatever you want to say. Don't feel you need all 3 minutes. Whatever you have to say, fine, and we can move on to the next. And we certainly want to hear from everybody that has signed up. So my right hand, Moira, will. Being an English teacher, can read the names very well. So we'll just keep moving.
And I'm even good at reading poor handwriting.
Well, even more so. So typically I ask Moira to read 2 names, the name, first name up, and then that next name getting ready to speak. So we're not waiting for a long time, someone to come way back, or whatever you want to do. So we'll just keep rotating 2 names, basically the person speaking and the next on deck for baseball. It's going to start, all right? So Moira, here you go, and it's about 7:25. Our policy says 30 minutes. Let's get through 30 and let's see where we are, and let's keep this moving.
Okay, so at bat is Amy Bennett, and then on deck is Kristen Chechi. Amy Bennett.
And please be ready to go. If
Yeah.
you signed up first, you should know. Here we go.
Yeah.
So I'm coming to you as a reading teacher from Enfield Elementary School, and I wish to share with you some of the many positive things that I see throughout my day as a teacher there. I see students who are generous and forgiving. They're eager to know more about the world around them. They're working hard to understand new ideas and share them with classmates and adults at our school. They have discussions about difficult issues like bullying, talking with peers, and how to make their classroom communities better places for each student to be. These kiddos work hard to understand new ideas and to share them through projects, collaborative discussions, and different artistic expression ideas. I work with the youngest population at the school, the kinders and first graders. And when I walk into classrooms, I see students that are excited to share in their peers' triumphs. I see students that are happy to learn and are supporting each other in environments that are supportive of them. We work hard to do what is best for all of our students, and it makes me happy when I go in every day and I see that there are students sharing excitement because one of their classmates just had a wonderful idea, having thoughtful classroom discussion and being part of a classroom community that supports them and cares about them. And I wanted to share this with you because I feel like as a teacher at our school, it's important to know that there are lots of positives. There are many little things throughout the day that make me happy to be an educator and to be a teacher there. I feel very lucky to have my position. It's the first year I've had the pleasure of teaching at Enfield. And I really hope to help the students pursue their dreams and continue to grow in an environment that's supportive of who they are as learners, but also as who they are as individuals. And I feel I see a lot of that in the different classrooms that I'm in each day. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. And Kristen Chechi, and then following her is Gina Valenza.
My name is Kristen Cece, and I would like to speak to my personal experiences at Enfield so far.
If you could stand up and put where you are, that'd be great. Thank you.
I have been teaching for several years and worked at different schools. This is my first year at Enfield Elementary, where I'm employed as a first grade teacher. When I first started at Enfield, I knew that it was a school environment I wanted to work in, where there are kids who need a lot of love and support. This position is by far the most challenging and rewarding I've had for many reasons. During this year, I've worked with a wonderful group of students who I have been lucky enough to see grow and change immensely. I have a mix of children with different needs of varying levels, as is normal in an inclusive class. There is a lot of support in the school for students, and I feel myself as well, and through our combined efforts, I have seen growth in academics, behavior, and social-emotional needs. Though there are times of challenges, I feel every child is learning and growing academically at the appropriate pace and level for them. The boys and girls in my class are very understanding and have come to realize that every child needs something different and that there is a difference between being fair and being just. They help each other and care about one another and want everyone to succeed and feel happy to be in our classroom. They are patient when someone is having a rough day and being disrupted and able to stay focused on their own work and tasks. I feel that a lot of teachers and students at Enfield could say the same things about their own classrooms. During the course of this year, I have faced new challenges and in return have received a lot of support from my principal, other administrators, colleagues, and a great team of teachers and social workers that I work with daily. There have also been a variety of trainings offered to us, either at school or PDs given outside of the district, including one specifically on trauma and how it affects the brain and learning. These trainings are aimed at the goal of helping us to work with our general population of students and to understand issues like trauma and the effect this can have on a child's life and academics. I feel that Enfield is the right fit for me, and I am happy and proud to work there, and I know many others will feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you. Gina Valenza, and then Melissa DiPaolo.
My name is Gina Valenzo. I'm currently a long-term substitute school social worker at Enfield. As a sub, I have no such fear for my job and speak from my heart on what I see and what I have experienced. Since my first contact with Principal Rieger, she spoke about providing a responsive and individualized environment where students experience caring and support to meet their needs for success, academically as well as social emotionally. She is caring and loving and has a fine grasp of fair is not always equal, which is an extremely difficult but absolutely necessary mindset. She continues to grow Enfield in positive and innovative directions. Several of these, I feel, are on the forward edge of growth in the field. For example, her efforts to support the district's policy for inclusive education. She invites all teachers to meetings with the goal of exploring and planning how to support the core values of the school. In addition, there have been trainings continually offered, most recently one from BOCES on trauma-informed classrooms offered to all. I mention this because she has offered me, a sub, the same opportunities and has welcomed any thoughts I have had. She is responsive, forward-thinking, a champion of students, and in particular, those who struggle or have needs.
Thanks, and I would just point out, if we could just keep it more broader and not just concentrate on one employee, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Melissa DiPaolo. I'm an untenured school social worker. I hold a license as a clinical social worker with an extensive mental health background. I proudly spend my days at Enfield School helping students from kindergarten through 5th grades. I'm also a parent of 2 children who attend Enfield, one of whom is a special needs student. I appear before you tonight to advocate for my school, Principal Rieger, staff, and students. Last week, we faced egregious accusations about Principal Rieger and alleged safety issues at Enfield School.
Again, I really, if we can keep personnel names out, that'd be great.
Okay. Let me start by sharing with you some of the student successes we've experienced at Enfield School. I have 17, but for the sake of time, I'll mention 6 or 7. Student number 2 completes more time in his classroom, more academics, and joins peers for morning circle. Student number 6 shows improvement following a change in physical environment. Student number 7 utilizes skills that help regulate emotions. Student number 10 stays in the classroom and completes work. Student number 11 uses words more appropriately, is developing friendships, and has a successful behavior plan. Student 12 has better success managing feelings, can de-escalate quickly, and integrates into learning quickly. Student number 16 has executed their behavior plan only a handful of times. And I think that's all I can say because the rest of it is about leadership. If I can't talk about leadership, then...
But you can talk about the school generally and the culture, but really want to stay away from personnel items.
Okay.
Next is Ellen Mary Abb, and then Chris Rexis.
Okay, I'll be quick. I'm Ellen Marie Abb. I'm the mom of 2 children at Enfield, a 2nd grader and a 5th grader. And my oldest son has school anxiety. And when we entered Enfield School shortly after, we really met with some disciplinary approaches to his special needs issue. And I felt like my concerns around those heavy-handed approaches were addressed and met, and we were offered resources. And so I would say what I'd like to see going forward in Enfield School is not more discipline, more resources, and more referrals.
Thank you.
And Chris. And then Chuck Biondo.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes, please.
Hi, my name is Chris Rexis, and I'm an untenured special education teacher at Enfield Elementary School. I believe at Enfield we have a wonderfully diverse makeup of students and families. I think of our school as a diamond in the rough. Contrary to what a few people would have you believe, we have many fabulous things happening at our school. But with only a few minutes to speak, I chose one topic that I'm very proud of to not only be a part of, but a willing participant. This year as a staff, we decided to pilot a school-wide core values program. Over the summer, we got together and brainstormed many values that we felt were important for our children to be exposed to. While we realized we couldn't implement them all at once, we could focus on a few the first year and then add more as we continued the program. We decided on 5 core values: integrity, compassion, courage, commitment to learning, success, and perseverance. To help us keep focused, Our principal did guide us in coming up with learning targets for each grade level. She helped us stay focused while planning activities that every student would be able to participate at every grade level. We also started a core values committee that often meets to reflect on what activities we have done to date and also consider how to introduce and practice these values continually throughout the year. Although there's a small group of us, I believe that we have created some wonderful experiences for our students as they learn about, work to practice, and model our Enfield core values. I would like to share some examples of the kids' experiences with some of the values that we've been working on. One of those was a compassion meter to see how many acts of compassion and kindness we did as a whole school. The students were extremely motivated and proud and worked really hard to get almost 1,000 compassion hearts, which were displayed on a bulletin board. We also had a bulletin board with every student's name and staff member's name on it. And boy, were they sure proud to find their name and look up and see all their teachers' names on it. And they talked about how great it was to be a part of a community. So I would like to invite all of you to come to our next celebration of learning, which is on March 22nd, to see even more stories and examples of success that we will be showcasing. I'm sure you'll be as impressed as I am by the vast array of exciting learning that is occurring in our little school. This is just one of many examples of the wonderful student and staff that work at Enfield. I love working there. I care about every child in our building, and I look forward to all the things that await us in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, and the date again?
March 22nd.
What time?
It's all day.
All day? Oh, good.
And
Thank you.
Chuck Diondo, and then Dawn Thornton.
Would that be DiPaolo?
I think it's Apollo.
Oh, okay, sorry,
Chopped up a bit.
Chuck DiPaolo. Okay, sorry, didn't look like that,
Used
but,
to it.
okay.
This is going to be truncated because it is an endorsement of building leadership, a strong endorsement of building leadership. I will leave that part out, which I just gave you. My name is Charles DiPaolo. I'm an Enfield parent. I have 2 children at the Enfield School, one of whom with special needs. I'm currently president of the Enfield School PTA, and this is my 4th year on that board. My wife is a school social worker. My remarks here tonight are my own, and are those of not of those of the PTA, and none of those of anyone else. Last week, our PTA hosted a meeting where parents and staff were heard on a number of issues. As we're not a legislative body, our role was to serve as a forum where everyone could come and hear the concerns that were so moved. The meeting was passionate. For me, there were 2 prominent themes I took away: discipline and do something about it. These concerns resonate with me as well. In the conversation, the concept of inclusion as an educational policy came up. I don't think a lot of people were really aware of it, but it did come out and we talked about it. Many seemed to support the idea and thought it was a worthy effort. I was glad to hear that. But not enough was being, many expressed that not enough was being done to help those children with the most extreme bad behavior. I don't know, I'm just a parent who trained to be a teacher years ago. I'm not active in the classroom, and I'm not an education or a labor lawyer. I do understand that the teaching staff at Enfield receives regular training in the policy of inclusion and in issues related to discipline and classroom management. I understand the building administration is quite active in arranging and promoting these trainings. That may be an understatement. But I also have parents and staff who voice concerns about not enough being done. I have investigated this, and I've found some things that I would like to share. I will not share them here because of the policy of the meeting tonight, but I would like to submit this for the record.
Oh, absolutely.
That's all I have to say.
And that's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, any written comments, go right to the board clerk, and we can all read them. And go ahead.
Dawn Thornton.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Thornton. I'm an Ithaca City School District Pre-K Family Liaison and a Master of Social Work student working and interning at Enfield Elementary. I've been a social work intern at Enfield for the past 2 years. I proudly spend my days at Enfield Elementary helping all the kids from pre-K through 5th grades. I am also an adoptive parent of 5 exceptional boys, all of whom have attended or are attending schools in the Ithaca City School District. My children come from 3 different ethnic backgrounds, and 3 of my boys have a wide range of special needs. Although my children have never attended Enfield Elementary, I am honored to be a part of the Enfield school community. Enfield is some of the most caring and loving staff anywhere, and our students are the best. We have a diverse student population who come from a variety of life experiences. As a school social work intern, I'm an advocate for change. My goal is to help students be the best they can be, academically, socially, psychologically, and behaviorally. I do this in collaboration with teachers, the principal, and the entire social emotional support team. Working together is a must to promote any kind of positive change, especially in a high-need school like ours. I wanted to highlight just a few of the things that the social emotional team works with our students on a daily basis. We provide individual counseling so students can gain skills to help them achieve success. We do group counseling to build social skills and friendships. Nothing is more satisfying than seeing children build friendships. We spend time in classrooms so students in need have additional support. We provide a safe place for students who need to self-regulate with big emotions. We respond to struggling students in classrooms to integrate them back into the learning environment as quickly as possible. We collaborate with grade level teams to create behavioral incentive plans for students who may need some additional support. We advocate for students on the Committee for Special Education. We establish partnership with Tompkins County Mental Health to provide a school satellite clinic for our students and families who are in need of mental health treatment. We now have a therapist who comes to our school once a week. We work with the Special Friends Program through Cornell University to match an intern with a student who needs a little more support. I am currently working in collaboration with Lori Williams and the Paws of Friendship organization to bring pet therapy into our school. I'm investing my own time and resources into this program because Enfield and its students are worth it. Though we do so much for our students, we're still striving to do more. There is no doubt the work is hard. Changes are still needed to help students have successful school experiences. This means changes in classroom environments and the way we communicate with our emotionally fragile students, just to name a few. The more educated we become in helping our students, the better the outcome. Our students depend on us to help them, so let's work together to make that happen. Thank you for your time and allowing me to share all the positives we do with our students on a daily basis. Thank you.
Good. Wow. Nailed it.
Crystal Van Petten?
Hi. My son is a smart, outgoing, funny, lovable, energetic kid. He has ADHD and getting counseling and therapeutic environments when needed. A one-on-one aid and outside support also. This has been the worst year for my son, and he has been at the same school since pre-K. Since he has started second grade, he has been treated unfairly and is where I feel the school system has failed him. Like being put at a desk by himself and had to ask other peers to be invited to a table when it was time for group activities. So that means if his peers did not want him to participate in group activities, it's allowing his peers to exclude him and whenever they wanted to. This meant he wasn't getting proper social skills that he needed. He also has dealt with criminalization and exclusions from others, like many in this room. He is not a violent child. My son and other kids like him need support, like what he is getting from his principal and social workers from our school community. What happened to my son should have never happened, and not even to any human being. It's just humane. Every child is different, so what works for another child may not work for another. And it's wrong that educated people will get on Facebook and bash a 7-year-old child. It's really sad. Instead of it, we should be standing up and trying to help him through what he's going through. If it was your child, you would feel the same way I feel and stand by your child to get the best education they deserve. It takes a village to raise a kid.
Thank you. Tracy Goodrich and then Greg Goodrich.
I'm going to have some papers too.
We just go on for 6 minutes straight. Is there a problem?
I'm going to...
But you don't need a tag team. Well, Tracy first. And then.
Okay. I'm going to have some things that I will submit
absolutely.
to the board as well.
Yep.
Good evening to all the board members, as well as others that are here to hear about the safety issues we've been having over the years at Enfield. And by we, I mean the many, many parents both here and at home. My name is Tracy Goodrich, a lifelong resident of Ithaca and Tompkins County, wife and mother of a 2nd grader and a 3rd grader at Enfield. I'm here tonight to also present letters from parents at Enfield who couldn't be here, as well as various emails that have been given to the administration in the past. There's been a bullying issue and a lack of support for all students at Enfield. And the more parent, I'm going to include a speech that I've talked to a bunch of groups over the last few weeks about, and I've also included that I will give to you as well. And the more parents that I've talked to, the more parents that I'm finding have the exact same problem. It's what I've presented a few different times. I'm not hiding anything, I'm not changing my story. Myself, as well as many other parents at Enfield, are begging for help for all of our students. All of our students. There are policies that this board put in place. Some of the names and faces of this board may have changed, but those policies are still in place, and they were only enacted back in 2014 and 2012, I believe. And I do have those, in case anybody needs to reference those. I can tell you that these policies are not being followed. And I'd also like you to take a look at restorative justice. It's a good website to look at is restorativejustice.org. An idea I'm told that the ICSD is attempting to model for all its schools. There are a few problems with this, and I'm not going to get into some. I just bear with me, please.
No, it's whatever you want to say, Tracy. It's good.
Well, I'm just, in restorative justice, there are rules and limits, and there are consequences. Neither of those key things in restorative justice are happening at Enfield. Or I venture to guess in many of the schools at Enfield, or in the elementary schools around the district. I've spoken with a number of friends in other elementary schools, both parent and teacher, and there are some same issues there. In addition to things not being implemented from restorative justice, the second problem is the children in elementary school do not have the cognitive ability to understand the deep meaning behind restorative justice. Love should conquer all. Sadly, it does not. I just don't have the time to go into it right now. But please know, I've made it my business to know about it in the recent weeks, as well as all the policies that this ICSD is turning a blind eye to. What kids do understand and see is that children are hurting other children. Children are creating dangerous environments and there's no consequences. No hugs, candy, or treats are enough to fix the problem. And even if they were, the children who are not causing the disruptions or have needs not met, those children, they're saying this to their teachers and parents. Explain to me how I'm supposed to explain to a very young child that candy and educational video games and other treats are not just that, but to teach them not to act out. Explain it to me because I don't understand. And I'll say it again as I've said it at all other talks. Enfield is failing all of its students. It's failing its teachers and paraprofessionals and support staff. We're not asking for the unattainable. We are asking that things change. If nothing else, we would work to include all parents in our movement or revolution as it was described by one of the board members recently. We want a better school for our students and staff. Every student is being failed. We want it better for everybody. And I have spoken to many parents who have asked staff and leadership for explicit help reinforcing the rules that they've been doing at home and or aggression actions that the school has ignored those requests. They've ignored it. There are parents asking for help and it's being ignored. Change needs to happen. And a good start is, I will not speak to that. I'm more than happy to answer any questions now or later that you have. Please don't ignore, please for help yet again. Thank you for your time.
So, for the people on the board who I haven't spoke to specifically, and I talked to Robert and Brett, and I've talked to Lavelle, and I was in a meeting with Lavelle and the principal. And this is what was said to me. When your daughter Sydney was attacked on the playground, it was not an act of bullying, it was an act of aggression. Think about that. If you don't know the definition of bullying, you can look it up on the DASA website. The DASA program is not being implemented, and neither is the documentation. This board and this school district is doing that age-old thing of, oh, we don't see it, we won't talk about it, we're keeping the family secrets. It's time to start documenting the problems when they happen. We put a lot of money into school tool. Is that being used? Have you guys looked at the number of instances? You guys are hearing about all these instances. How about you guys go back and look and see how many of them are there? We spent a lot of money and a lot of resources at this school. Right? Another thing that was said to me that day in the meeting with Dr. Brown was, oh, maybe this is the first time someone has exhibited control over Sydney, and she's having a hard time dealing with it. Oh. She is in second grade, And someone here tell me that you think it's okay for a second grader to be bullied. You know what? I turned in a DASA form, and to this day, I do not have a safety plan in my possession. That was due to me within 10 days. I also asked for the training records for the school district. I was foiled. You want to know something? I don't think the training happened before I complained. The training happened after. There is a report out by the state comptroller that says, and it was in February of this year, I believe, that schools are underreporting. It's the Enlightened School District of Ithaca, New York, the one that stands up against anti-bullying, anti-discrimination. Are we the ones still not following the law? Are we the ones still not documenting? I want you guys, if you guys can go home and feel good about that, please resign. Please resign. Our kids are screaming for help. I understand, and I want every kid to get every ounce of help there is. But we need to document it and get the help there early, not late. Not 5 months into school, not 3 months into school. You know what? What's happening is we don't document on School Tool. We don't document it because it goes away. So every year in September, the ticker starts over again. There's no documentation. If we had documented from year to year to year and kept it in someplace other than a secret folder in an office, right? If it was on School Tool, I mean, who's in charge of that? Who directs the principals not to document? Is it the school board? I mean, I want one of you to tell me that it's okay for someone to be told not to put something in School Tool. My time's up.
And then Erin Yenga.
My name is Ayani Yamaguchi, the mother of 3 parents and former students of Enfield School. I observed many disruptive behaviors in Enfield School. For example, 2015, my youngest son was bullied from a boy. Even after principal talked about it with the child, he continued bullying my son. He started threatening my son by telling him, "I'm gonna kill you," multiple times, and started attacking my son again on the school bus. My son had fear that the boy was always trying to kill him. Principal said, "We take this situation very seriously. I will speak to the driver to see if there is a way your son can sit in front of him. This way they do not need to pass each day." She also mentioned that talked about it with this boy and his caregiver, and I appreciate that she took care of this problem immediately. My second boy told me to protect his younger brother whenever he can. That felt more helpful though. I have heard similar or much worse incidents from parents, which made me think later the way principal had taken care of incidents may not have been effective at all. A lot of kids in Enfield come back home saying, "I don't want to go to school," not only because they were being bullied, but also because they are terrified by witnessing violence. Also, those who hurt other kids don't look like they are receiving proper support. Programs have been repeating over and over again. Enfield School has good teachers, but now my youngest lost his teacher whom he trusted. He was bullied, including racial harassment from a classmate this school year. And this is only the example of the problem in this class, and the whole school have been dealing with. My son believed that his second grade teacher would be there to help the class. Kids were told that the teacher is not coming back because of personal reasons. As I started preparing this speech last week, I heard another incident just happened that day, which includes throwing chairs, turning the tables down, pushing people around, which convinced me more of principal's ineffectiveness. I request on behalf of many other concerned parents, immediate investigations over the lack of accountability and the possible suspension of school leaders. We all wish the best for our children. Thank you very much.
Aaron Mango, and then Brandon Cornell.
My name's Erin Yango. I have 2 daughters at Enfield. One was in 2nd grade of the said teacher who was removed, regardless of if we agree or disagree. It was still a very unpleasant and very upsetting change for the kids. We are a group of moms and parents and teachers that it isn't about one child. It is not about one teacher. It's about there's enough of the same. You have to take a look. We're asking that the board we would like for the board to conduct an independent review of Enfield, how they do the DASA or how they don't, how the code of conduct is enforced or not enforced, or how we can tune it for younger kids. This is not about segregating. This is not about wanting to get rid of the kids that create a problem. This is about these kids and these parents, or not parents, but the teachers who are begging for help. They want more. I'm not saying that the principal or the other staff members here in support of her or at that school do not care. That's the last thing that any of us would ever say. But they need more. And at some point, pride has to be set aside. It's okay, we teach our kids, use your voice. If you need something, ask for help. If you need help, if you're afraid of something, ask for help. Kids go to school because they go to school and they don't need to be scared. They go to school and they don't need to witness it. This is way above inclusion. Nobody wants to do away with inclusion. What we want is more resources. What we want is more backing for the teachers. They do not need to be labeled ineffective by an ineffective leader because they're asking for help for their kids. Thank you.
Robin Whitmore.
What I had prepared today, I am unable to say because it has names in it. All I can say is what the Goodriches said is exactly how I feel. What Erin Yango said is exactly how I feel. I used to work at George Junior, so I am used to that sort of environment. I was a paraprofessional at the school. I am no longer because of what I am standing up for. I have been physically attacked at that school by children, 2 of my children which had to witness this attack on me. Every single day I would be spat at, bit, kicked, scratched, or punched every day, and nothing was done. No phone call home, no suspension, nothing. I would go home crying, and the kids in the classroom that would see me getting physically attacked would have issues with this too. Whether y'all wanted to have a blind eye to what is going on there and say that everything is honky-dory there, it is not. And change needs to happen. 6 years is too much.
That was Robin Whitmore?
Yep.
Brandon Cornell.
Hello. 3 of my sons and 2 of my nephews are students at Enfield Elementary School. Their safety and well-being is upmost in my mind every day as we entrust them to the care of the school personnel. Bullying and other acts of violence have become an epidemic in our schools. Enfield is not immune to this threat. In order for me to continue to entrust my children to Enfield Elementary School, I have to be ensured that unsafe conditions and situations are being dealt with swiftly and effectively to ensure all of our children's safety. At this point, I have no such assurance. When there have been dangerous incidences, official communications from the school has been sketchy at best, late in coming and often misleading. I feel like in the interest of looking good and gaining the title of being an exceptional administration, statistics are considered more important than student safety. When I hear statistics such as referrals have been reduced by 60 or more %, I don't hear how safe our schools has become. Our children have not suddenly become angelic. Students are put at risk by ignoring problems and sweeping issues under the rug. My belief is that children thrive under a structured environment and discipline. I feel as of right now that the discipline policy at Enfield is not in a position to help our children be successful and to know what right and wrong is. My hope is that the policy will be overlooked and changes made to put the children's future first.
Lindsay Garner, and then Teresa Guler.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Lester Garner, and I'm a taxpayer, a mother of a 21-month-old, and a really concerned member of the community. I am so blessed to be in a room, and I think I'm crying because I'm so honored to be present with people who are so passionate and have our children's best interest at heart, and hearing at the beginning of this meeting just about justice and equalities being brought to people's attention and discussed. It's amazing. I grew up here, and I want my son to enter in a world where we all treat everyone equally under the law. And I'm here to talk about something a little different, religious exemption, which it's been a very taboo topic. A lot of people feel very uncomfortable to talk about because there are very strong opinions. It's very subjective, and it's hard to keep an open mind. But I tell you, like, if people knew me before and know me now, God plays such a big role in my life.
Come on.
And to have someone and to watch other people get interrogated in a way which it's not coming from a place of it's not coming the board, or we call them the tribunals, is not coming from a place of caring. It's coming from a place of really trying to prove that they're wrong. And to watch this happen in today's society seems so off-putting. And to say that Ithaca is this open community, which, you know, we all say, oh, Ithaca's so open-minded. I say to you that I don't know if that's true. I don't know. And it's really scary. It's a scary place to be somewhere where everyone thinks they're right. And today I want to say I don't know the right thing, but I know that this love in this room, I feel so good about it, that no matter what happens, people are involved and they're looking out for the children, and they're going to be okay as long as we do the next right thing.
Then Heather Allen.
Hi, I'm Teresa. I got 2 children in Enfield Elementary. At first, I was really excited to come speak, and then I saw the staff and kind of second-guessed speaking because I enjoy going to the school. I'm friends with a lot of the staff, have no problem with any of them, so I was kind of nervous to even come and talk. And I don't want my children being treated differently after this whole thing. I'd like to first take the opportunity to thank you all for listening to us and hear our concerns. I'm only the one many parents that's very concerned with the lack of discipline being conducted with Enfield Elementary School. I have 2 children enrolled in the school district, a 1st grader and a 3rd grader. I try very hard to attend field trips, donate clothes to the nurses station, help with snacks, etc. However, when I attend school function and I visually see children running out of classrooms and there's no consequences for their actions, I'm just amazed. Recently, my son's best friend was bullied to the point in which he left the school district, which was hard for my son. Then recently, the event that happened last week, where he witnessed a child throwing furniture, dumping garbage, trying to possibly attack a personal staff member. His teacher, which I won't mention, did the best that he could to handle the situation, and was struggling to the point he even called the principal down, and she was struggling with him too. My son was so upset and frightened by this that he felt scared and uncomfortable to go to school the next day. Before my son's teacher came along, my child's this year had subs half the year, no homework, no test, no agenda. The class was pretty much put on autopilot. His new teacher got all the agenda set up, the work, the reading logs, the math packets, and I applaud him for doing this. The students were very behind not having a stable teacher, and he took the role on, and I think he's doing an excellent job. And the principal even came in the next day to thank him for trying to get the kids out with that situation that happened. I'd also like to mention that the same year, this past year, children brought a knife into my kid's classroom. Prior to these events, to my knowledge, nothing happened, nothing was done about it, there was no disciplinary action done. And you know, this is what's happening around the state and the country and everything. This was a knife. What happens if it was a gun and I'm worried about my children going to school every day? I strongly feel like there should be some action taking with all this stuff going on, and there's not. And my son's usually a very good boy, listens and well-mannered, helps others and behaves. But the misbehaved children and the lack of respect in other staff is now unfortunately rubbing off onto other kids, such as my son, and I, for one, am very, very tired of this. I've even talked about pulling my child out and putting them both into a different school district or even homeschooling them. I don't want to either do either of them. I love them attending Enfield, but the disciplinary needs to be fixed. When a child is misbehaving to the point where they're interrupting the entire class, multiple children are frightened for their actions. I myself are curious, why is an ISS room not being put in place, whether it's a day or a week or possible, and a possible counselor come into the school to talk to these children crying out for help. Instead, the actions of the students, it's being repercussed onto the teachers, and then the teachers, it's the teacher's fault. They're getting fired, they're getting written up, and I don't think that that's fair. These kids are crying out because they need help. Maybe they need extra counseling or something's going on at home, or they do have special needs. And it's a lot for a specific teacher to have to address that when he's trying to teach 15 other kids. And I strongly feel like, you know, maybe Enfield needs to come together more and have more resources available for those kids that are troubled, that have anger issues. And, you know, I had to sit down and talk to my son and say, you know, buddy, maybe he's going through some problems at home. Maybe he's sad inside or upset, and maybe that's why he's acting like that. He's 9. He doesn't understand what's going on. You know,
Last point, please.
I don't really have all the answers, but I just wanted to come and speak because this year has been really, really hard for my kids. Like I said, I enjoy all the staff, and, you know, I don't know what we're going to do about it, but I really think that the problems that these children have, it shouldn't be trickled onto the teachers and the teachers' fault. It seems like that's what's happening. They're getting fired or written up and stuff. The teachers are trying their best, teaching 15, 16 kids. When a student acts up, there's got to be disciplinary actions, or they've got to be put in a room. When I went to school, there used to be an ISS room. You sat there and, you know, maybe these smaller children need more attention and more counseling to get where they need to be in life. Thank you.
Alan and Patricia Connors.
I thought Heather Allen was next.
I said Heather Allen and then
sorry,
Patricia
I
Connors, yeah.
And there's 4 more speakers, and we do have a full agenda, and we will get to it, but if we could finish up, that would be great. So Heather, please, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Heather Allen. I am a community member in Enfield. I have a 30-plus year history with Enfield Elementary School. I went there as a student myself. I have 13 straight years of involvement with this school through my 5 children. 1 is a senior at Advocacy High School, and 3 are currently enrolled in the school in 3rd, 1st, and pre-K. I have seen a lot of things at the school over the years, and I'm becoming increasingly concerned. I was also at the PTA meeting last week and heard Mr. Ainsley talk about the student-teacher ratio, which I would agree is fantastic at Enfield. It's one of the things I love most about our school. It was similar when I was in school, and I equally loved it.
I, however, would not argue that that means we have enough resources. As you look at the report card for our school, you can see that we have more students at our school that have special needs than there are in other elementary schools in the district. You are on the Board of Education. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. We need more resources. I took it upon myself to also look at the report card to compare how we were performing academically, and it's really appalling to look at how our students are performing academically versus the other elementary schools in the district. We are doing 34 to 35% lower performance in ELA and math than all of the other elementary schools in the district over the past 5 years. I only went back to 2012. I have all of the data here for all of you. I even printed some out for our students because I want you all to be involved in this discussion as well. And it's really disheartening as someone who was so proud to go to Enfield and then go to Cornell like you, Bob, and have my kids go to the school, and with staff like this, they're not gonna go to Cornell. We're failing our kids. My kids come home and they say they didn't learn anything because the teacher was distracted. They were dealing with an issue that was in the class. They couldn't focus. There was a student who was raising ruckus and they weren't made to leave. Or there were kids running up and down the hall, and that was very distracting. It's very frustrating as a parent to hear that these things are happening and they're not being addressed. Last week's incident that we've already talked about was also equally frustrating. I have a student who was also in that class. What was more frustrating for me as a parent was hearing my son come home from school and say, "Mom, I don't have my homework folder today because one of my classmates went berserk and we all had to get sent out of the classroom, and our teachers had to throw our bags out into the classroom, and then to get an email from the principal saying that the students were all dismissed in an orderly fashion and able to return to the classroom." That's not what I was told from my son actually happened. So I just don't have any confidence in what the principal actually says happens is actually the case of what is happening. I, as others have echoed, don't believe that she's an effective leader. I've seen it. This shows it clearly. And before I finish, my final point is, again, this is quite a showing of inclusion. I couldn't believe more in inclusion myself. We're doing inclusion beautifully in the district. Schoolgrades.org shows it. All the other elementary schools get grades of A's, B's, mostly A's. Enfield has an F, and it makes me sick as an Enfield parent. All these people here before you who've spoken on behalf of what a great school that we have, how many are tenured? Almost every single one of them is brand new this year or in the past few. I have been here.
I'm sorry, I just want to stop you. We're not going to say anything negative about the people that...
I'm just saying that I have a long history,
and you're out of time.
Okay.
Patricia Connors, then Jared Stevens.
Hi.
Nope.
No. Hi, I'm Patty Connors. I'm new to Enfield. I'm married to Brad Connors. And I'm a former educator. I've loved kids from the time I was really little. I don't want to cry like this other mom over here, but my last year of teaching was very difficult. I have 3 degrees and a master's. I'm a special ed teacher. I'm an elementary ed teacher, and I have my degree in reading. I was so looking forward to just volunteering at the school. You know, it's just down the road from where I live. I don't know very many people in the community, but it's upsetting to me because I know what my last year was like for me. My passion for the children and their families never wavered. I was upset because I had a classroom where 5 of the kids were in wheelchairs. They depended on us to feed them. They were tube fed. I had one student that was very capable physically and even cognitively. I was targeted and I was ready to retire only because I talked to them about safety and concerns. And mark my words, I went to the union and I said, I'm so worried. This was a school that I was teaching in a nearby district. And there had already been a national case of somebody being there who set bombs out in the school where I worked, okay? So I had that fear. We had some some personnel that were walking and they saw a man with a gun right next to the school building. Now, we didn't know what happened or why that man had a gun, but we had to treat that as if the school was under attack. Now, it was right towards my classroom. I was very nervous. This was shortly after Sandy Hook, okay? And I talked to my supervisors about having nightmares as a teacher, that I couldn't protect those kids, okay? I went to my union and I said, I'm really concerned about the safety of these children that are in wheelchairs. And 15 people, 15 different staff members came to work with me as paraprofessionals. And they said, I can't do this, I won't do this. And my administration said, well, we've provided people for you. And I said, yes, you have. Looks great on paper, but they can't restrain the one student that is potentially going to hurt these other innocent children because 3 staff members have to very carefully take care of the student. Now, all of them deserved a good public education, and every one of them deserved to be there, okay, including myself. But I felt very, very saddened at the end of the school year, okay, and I became mentally and emotionally disabled that year, and I did have a medical condition, and while I was taking time off, someone else administered the test that I was supposed to administer, okay? And I'm just saying this because I worry about teaching as a profession. I worry about parents. I worry about kids. I worry about safety. Mark my words. I went to the union and I said, I feel like I need to document my concerns. And as soon as I said to the administration, I'm worried that this one very capable student who is very aggressive is going to hurt one of these other kids. A year after I retired, I was approached by another person. And sure enough, there was a lawsuit, and one of those kids, and I wanted to help the boy that was having difficulty, but there were days we had to protect those other students.
We need to.
Have I gone past my 3 minutes?
Oh yeah, and you've kind of lost me in your description here. So.
Okay, I'm just concerned for people losing jobs that really care about kids, and that all kids are safe.
Sure, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Jared Stevens, and then Stephanie Warner.
Okay, I'm Jared Stevens. I have 2 kids in Enfield Elementary. I'm a proud parent. I was recently forced with my son's mother to withdraw my 3rd grader because the school was not providing a safe learning environment for him. After attempts to communicate my concern with administration and leaders, it became very clear I was not being taken seriously. It saddens me. My son really liked his teacher, and now my son misses his friends and his teacher. As a parent, I am appalled that a school that talks such great accomplishments and cares for their students would let this sort of dangerous learning environment continue. This 2017-18 school year has proven that Ithaca City School District does not stand behind the high standards I was fooled to believe. Low staff morale and incompetent administration are to blame, and I am no longer the fool. You know, I just want to address the board. I mean, I'm assuming you guys are on the board because you care about the students. Like, Why else would you be? That should be the only thing that matters as a board. In society, when you hear things of this extent, drastic actions are taken. You know, when somebody shows up at a store with a knife, police show up and they investigate and they handle situations. So I guess I'm wondering, if this isn't handled tomorrow, I'm going to be dumbfounded. It's going to blow my mind as just a human being in society if like we leave and we go home, you guys don't stay and say, what are we going to do? Don't believe us. Go and figure it out for yourself. Go sit in the classrooms and go handle the situation at hand. Handle it. I mean, it's not that difficult. This is what's going on in the school. You have countless time and time, people after people, story after story, testimony after What else do you need to hear? I mean, if this was going on in society as a whole, like at a store or a public place, it wouldn't continue without drastic measures. So now it's completely on you guys as a board. We've done what we can do, we've said what we can say, and now it's either got to go to Albany or DC if you guys don't handle it. It has to.
And Stephanie Warner is the last speaker, and there's Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Warner. I have a son who's in second grade at Enfield and a daughter who has gone through Enfield and who is at Boynton this year. Well, second year is this year. I'm here to speak about my concerns for Enfield Elementary School. I was told by several people when my daughter started in 2009 how wonderful of a school it was and the friendship she would make and how wonderful the staff and teachers are, but I've seen a dramatic change since 2009. I don't even know who half the staff is anymore when I walk down the hallways. I'm also concerned about safety in the school and in the classrooms. My daughter had incidences when she was in school. A student would trash the classroom, just about overturning chairs, tables, and it was a concern then, and we were reassured that there were measures taken in place at that time to prevent this sort of situation. You know, if a child needed help or to talk through their problems, if they're going through some sort of trauma or family home issues, there would be resources available. So I don't understand why now, all these years later, when she's in 7th grade, and that was in 3rd grade, it's still happening there, and it's happening more and more. From what I'm hearing from other parents, and even when I asked my son what happened in school today, you know, they had to stop learning today or had to stop, you know, doing this or that. They didn't get to do this or that because there was a child, another child in the class who was being disruptive, and so they had to be taken out. I'm worried for my son and all the children's, everybody. The children's education, they're being able to learn what they need to learn to progress in school and go forward with their lives and their future. And I also care about the children who are going through trauma and hardships. They shouldn't be forgotten either. So there needs to be a better balance, and you guys need to do better. Ithaca needs to do better for that school. Otherwise, my son might be one of the next ones leaving that school if there isn't a change. I'm to that point, and I've been urged by some friends and family to do so. But everybody keeps promising that things we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, things are gonna get better. But I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to see that. So I guess that's all I have to say. I'm still waiting after all these years to see improvement, and it's just getting worse.
Thanks, Stephanie. Had an hour. That is everyone that signed up, and we do have a full agenda, and we will move forward. So, and there's the agenda is before us, so we will get to it, and we're going to get to it right now. What comes next is an opportunity for the board to respond, if they wish, to anything that they heard tonight. Entertain anything from anyone. Are we good?
I guess I would like to say something to all of the teachers and all of the parents who came out to share their views and their pain with us tonight. I've been a resident of this district for a quarter of a century and sent 2 kids through, and been a parent in the classroom and a parent volunteer ever since I've lived here. And the board does not cover up, nor does the board condone the covering up of anything. When teachers and principals are working with a student, that's the resolution of that is personal. It cannot be trumpeted to other people because that's an invasion of privacy. I've had to work with a lot of disciplinary issues in my years at work, and parents would say, well, tell me what happened to that other kid, and I say, I can't. I never can. That would be wrong. It would be a violation of people's basic rights to privacy. There are a lot of things that the board, members of the board cannot say, and members of the administration cannot say about individual cases, which is one of the reasons that many reasons that we don't comment on that. We are, the gentleman who brought this up, I don't see him in the room. We are in fact all on the board because we care about every single student. And we care about every student together, not one group of students against another and not one type of student against another. They're all kids, they're little kids, and I have campaigned 3 times on the board, for the board now, with the basic premise that every child gets one shot, right? If a year goes bad, that's bad for every kid that happens for. And we do, we're not the ones who are out figuring out how to manage each classroom and each teacher. That's not my training, it's not my forte. We bring in and support people who we think do that well. And we try to give the resources that are needed to get that job done for the teachers and the parents. Some of the things that you've described have happened in every other elementary school in the district. They've happened in my kids' classrooms. This is the nature of public education, that there are lots of different kids at different stages, and it's no comfort to you to hear, well, it happens other places too. I am concerned that that's a feeling that has grown up in Enfield, that it's only happening there, and we don't want this to happen in Enfield or anywhere. I can't tell you tonight what we as a district are going to do. Certainly, Dr. Brown and his team are aware. They've come to talk with you, and I would leave that to him to comment on. Again, we're not educational experts, but we do care about schools, children, teachers, and parents. And until I read everything else that's been given, that's about all I can say.
Thanks, Pat. Where do you want? Chris, go ahead.
I want to echo Pat's sentiments, but what I really want to do is let the parents, everyone know who came here, that being a parent, having 4 kids going through the Ithaca City School District, I understand, and we do hear you, and this is the only time I'll speak for the full board, we do understand, because these are your children and you send them to school and you have expectations and you put them in our care. So I totally understand that. I do believe, and I believe in consensus building. I get nervous when I see people scared and they are reactionary. We can get through this together, and I heard a lot of people who said they recognize people in the room and they respect one another. And when your concerns for your children and your fears for your children lead to attacks, I mean, you are 100% right to care for your children, and you want this to get better, and we can get this better. And this is a process. So while nothing changes overnight, I want you to know that you are heard. I want to, one, discount some implications of throwing things under the rug or not doing things and intentionally misleading folks. I think we've always tried to be above board, always tried to do things in the best interest of children. And, you know, I've got to be honest, when focusing on children, a lot of times adults get neglected and they feel left out. And because you want what you want for your child and all other kids be damned. And I've been there, I understand that. But when all other kids be damned and every other parent thinks like that, your kid gets damned too. So we have to be careful on how we move forward with things. I saw a lot of fear and a lot of anger, and it causes a lot of damage. So once we all get damaged, it's done. So really, we don't have a solution. It's a process thing, but we will move forward with this.
Want to go?
I'll just say that I really appreciate both what Pat and Chris just said, and as painful as it is, you know, I appreciate people coming out to share their concerns, their perspectives. And I think one thing that Chris alluded to is that for things to get better, it's only going to happen with a collaborative approach, that we need to work together. And we're here at the board as volunteers to listen, to ask questions, to make suggestions, and to work with parents, students, teachers, administration to act to make things better for all kids.
Board member got applause. That's probably first.
It's true.
I try to make the whole laugh. Do you want to go? Okay.
I want to thank everyone that's come out tonight. I would agree with everything that everyone has said so far. I would also add that I would speak for the board and say that I believe every single one of us here on the board support all kids. We meet and dedicate every Tuesday of our lives for a reason, because we believe every child has a right to a public education. I think all of us in this room can agree we all come from different walks of life. We all have different baggage. And as Chris pointed out, I have 3 kids. I'm not calling them tonight because this meeting's going pretty long. It's my job to protect my child, and I want the best for her, but at the same time, she has amazing friends that have dealt with serious trauma that come from great walks of privilege, and in those experiences, it's going to make her a better person, a greater person. She's going to be more humble. She has been in classrooms in this district where she has had kids who have turned tables, who have totally destroyed rooms, and some of those kids have turned out to be her best friends. Some of those kids are now at her school playing the cello, and those are things they would have never done if we wanted to ship them off to places like George Jr. because we didn't believe in them. When we get to a place where we allow kids to fall through the cracks because they don't look like us, because they don't come from the same walks of life as us, we're not saying that we want inclusion. We're not preaching inclusion. I believe in safety for all children. I believe that we most definitely need to look at the classrooms and get teachers and support staff the support that they definitely need, but I also think that it's very important that you understand that as a board, our job is to do what's best for all kids and not just one child, because you have one point of view in terms of like what education is supposed to look like, what socialization is supposed to look like. So I would say that I hear your concerns, we hear your concerns, and we understand what safety means, but I also think that we all have a different definition of what violence is, because I have 3 kids that try to kill each other all day long. But I also understand that bullying is something totally different from aggression, which is something totally different from having a bad day, which is something totally different from some kids need a certain structure, and when they're thrown out of that structure, their day is totally different. So I guess what I would ask for is that we not target children as problem children, or they need to be isolated. And I understand that because of the political climate, because of what we're seeing on TV, that most definitely heightens everyone, that makes everyone anxious, and no one wants to get that phone call at work that something bad has happened. But I also think that we have to work together or we're going to die alone.
Anybody? Oh, Ann.
Just
Ann, go ahead.
Just
Ann,
thank
go
you
ahead.
all for coming. I really do appreciate hearing the perspectives and the different perspectives, what people have to say. And to reiterate that, to pick up on what Maura said, I think it's really working collaboratively to really understand how to improve things together. So, you know,
What she said.
break it apart and see how to make better.
Brad, go ahead.
Well, I don't have too much to say. I appreciate what Nicole had to say. Thank you very much. You said better than what I was going to say about expectations as to what school was 30 years ago and what it is today, and how we're trying not to have an ISS room in the school, suspension. We want the children in the classroom, in the general education classroom, and things like that. As for resources, I know I was at the PTA meeting, spent 2.5 hours there last Monday, gave you my perspective on that. You have the smallest class size in the district. What I think I'm hearing you say is that you need potentially some other supports, and we need to talk about that. I think Myra, you pointed out at a meeting earlier today, you're going to a mental health summit that the School Boards Association is having. 2 others in my congregation.
Eldred and 3 of us are going.
All right, 3 of you are going. I mean, we do take this seriously, taking time out of our days to study this, and you know, hopefully they'll come back with some ideas, and I know Dr. Brown and his staff are working on ideas as well. So I want you to understand we've heard you. You know, we put plenty of time into this, and you know, the solution may look like what you think it should, or it may look different. But we do care about the kids, and we will be working on this.
Thanks, Brad. I guess I'll just finish up and then we'll move on. I'm the Ithaca alum on the board. I'm the farm kid from Enfield. My son went to Enfield School. I don't live on the east side of the lake. I live on the west side of the lake. Always have, always will. So I've been in Ithaca for, I hate to say it, I will say it, 62 years. I'm older than I look, Chris. Right, I have classmates that if I see them at reunion, they say I would have won the least likely to be the school board president from my class. I was dairy farmer for a long time. I was really happy to be with cows all day, but I eventually had to shift careers. And for me, it's always been about the student experience, about the kids. Coming from Enfield, living on a farm in Enfield, there was a stigma to that when I was in school. So for me, it was, it has always been the community. This community, I think, takes there's lower expectations for folks from Enfield, for kids from Enfield. I have fought against that. I wear a suit because I come directly from work. But for me, Enfield is important. It is my son's school that he had a pretty good experience going there. It's very important to this community that Enfield School is successful, and successful for the kids, and that's what we are concentrating on. I certainly appreciate the comments from the board. Enfield is not forgotten here. The reason I ran for the board is because I didn't see anybody from the west side, anyone from Enfield really ever being on the board. So it's important that Enfielders have a voice, and I can tell you, this is the most folks from Enfield that I've ever seen at a school board meeting, and this is my 11th year, and this is my 10th year as president of the board. So when these guys elect me, the only reason I serve at the will of the board, and I guess the only reason I ever did it because, at least the farm kid from Enfield is president of the Board of Education, for good or for bad. So it's not my fault, it's their fault that I serve in here. So it's we need to make sure that Enfield is the place that we want it to be. That there's great experiences there. It's my son has been very successful, but in his job, they tell him, you don't act like the other engineers that we talk to, that we interact with, because he had an opportunity to be with a lot of different kids in Ithaca, starting at Enfield and going up through the middle schools. It's a great opportunity to be with people that don't look exactly like you and come from a different place. And it's, so we come from that hill, and then we go to class with the professor kids from that hill. This has been going on a long time. So how do we all meld together to eventually have great kids at Ithaca High? How does all that happen? And
LACS.
I did the and LACS. How does it all happen here? It happens when we work together. It happens when we listen to each other, and it happens when we as parents support the school, but also speak up when we see things that we know are wrong. So and that's why I ran for the board initially. I didn't like where Ithaca High was. What have you done to my high school? And so, and I think we really have gotten the district moving in the right direction, and I see a lot of progress in many different ways. But Enfield is one of the rural elementary schools, and we have an obligation to all the kids, not just the kids downtown, not just the kids in Northeast, not just the kids in Hugo Heights or South Hill. Caroline and Enfield, and we're going to hear from Caroline and Enfield in a few minutes here. Hugely important to the success of the district that the rural kids that don't have the opportunity, don't have the transportation to do the other activities that other kids do, to recognize that the kids are out there in Wilseyville and just about in Newfield and out in Caroline and the hills of Caroline. And so it's hugely important that all the kids are recognized and served. And when we mean all the kids, we mean all the kids. And that means all the kids with issues and problems as well. And we are better for it. And Dr. Brown, I think I'm tired of talking. But I appreciate everybody coming tonight, and we're going to go through our consent agenda. We're going to do a few presentations. We'll probably take a break and then finish up. But we are here probably for a while yet. If you can't stay, that's fine. If you want to stay.
We want to take 5 right now? Or?
And we can do that. So we are going to take a break. We are going to hear from some building leaders when we come back after the consent agenda. So we're going to take a break for 5 minutes. I'm going to get more water, and then all right, board clerk. Everything goes to the board clerk.
Signatures?
You don't want to stay?
You took a lot of notes.
the consent agenda? We're going to start voting on things. We are 7. We do have two folks that are not with us tonight. We are 7 out of 9. So we still need those 5 votes for whatever.
I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second by Chris.
I can speak to one item.
There's some items here, Brad, correct?
Yeah, if I can speak to at least one.
Please.
We've got a municipal cooperative agreement in here having to do with a cooperative investment pool with BOCEs, towns, villages, fire districts, etc. We've not participated in the past. It appears advantageous to us. We're going to go over it further in the next finance committee meeting, but I wanted your indulgence to put this on now so that Amanda and Lisa can begin the process with these folks. We think we can do substantially better on short-term investment. It's a pool.
On the money market.
It's a day-to-day.
But this action does not authorize investment. You're just.
No, there'll be a second resolution later. This is a municipal agreement which would allow us to then work with them and the other municipalities in the cooperative.
Right. So this is PMA. It's a company out in Illinois or something?
No, this is in New York.
Really?
Yeah, it's in New York. It's just school districts.
But the company behind it, though.
Oh, behind it? I don't know who's behind it. I laughed.
Oh, well,
You do?
Well, I clicked on the link.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I don't milk cows anymore, so I click on links. So, yeah.
So it's from Illinois?
Well,
so they're buying a service?
Right, exactly. Exactly. Just so folks.
But we've got.
You're going to review that and find.
But we're going to have. I mean, just so you know, it's day-to-day liquidity. So there's not.
Right.
We're not tying money up or anything like that.
The idea is to get a better rate of return on the money market than zero, or close to zero.
Well, we're getting very close to zero right now.
Right. All right. Anything else? We good? Move seconded by Chris. All in favor? That's everyone. And Dr. Brown, it's only 10 of 9, and we hear Dr.
This is a record, yeah.
No, you had to speak during commendations. So,
I did. Well, I would defer most of my time to the amazing principals who are going to speak after me. But I will say we did have a competition ceremony that was our biggest and best yet. We recognized a nationally board certified teacher, young people who are winning state championships, class section championships, and the heroes of the night were our maintainers who we brought in. The entire crew showed up. And we shared images of the ice jam that they cleared for us. And I wish I had pictures of all the sidewalks and everything else they clean up every day before most of us wake up. So if you see a maintainer, thank a hero, because they've done some amazing work, not just this year, but every year. And we had an opportunity to welcome all of them and congratulate them all. And they received a standing ovation, one of the first ones we've had in a while at that ceremony. So again, thank you all who participated in our commendation ceremony. Thank you.
For good reason, Dr. Brown. So we do, as is our custom, we do try to work through all the building leaders in the district, and we're going to do 2, and Lisa Rieger and Mary Grover. So are you going to come? You're going to come together. There you go.
Yeah, we're going to come together.
Great.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to see you.
Shoot you for it?
Flip a coin.
Okay. I'll start. Thank you for inviting me. And I do want to say that to everybody here that I know that the conversation was a difficult one. I have been asked by the board to talk about some specific topics. And in no way, by doing so, am I disrespecting anybody or the concerns that were laid out here tonight. But I am going to talk about some of the things that I am particularly proud of at Enfield, because I've been there for 7 years, and there's a lot to be proud of. And when people ask me why Enfield, I say, and when I say this is not me, this is how I would characterize our parents, our teachers, and myself as a leader. We're proud. We're very proud. We're a caring community, very committed to the well-being and success of all kids.
We're also committed to building culture of love, and we're also committed to building culture of continuous improvement. In fact, my staff has had that as a target for the past 3 years. So we know that there's great things happening, but we always acknowledge that we can do better. We value innovation. We value keeping students at the center of all that we do. So, one of the things the board asked to talk about a little bit was inclusion. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is our staff came together over the summer and we talked about success. And we talked about the elements of success. And I did that with them. They talked about their personal success. They talked about their success as teachers. And we analyzed success together. We came up with a list of what success looks like for kids and for people. And it was very, very purposeful. And the reason I did it is because we can't recreate success unless we know some of the elements of it. And one of my favorite things to do at a staff meeting every once in a while is I throw up a kid. It was a success. And we talk about with their teacher, like what do they think with the elements that we came up with? What do they think was the reason for the turnaround or the progress or having this year be a great year? Some of my staff also mentioned our core values. That's something that the staff came from staff. They wanted to try this. We have core values not only for kids, we also have core values for teachers of integrity, compassion, commitment to success, courage, and perseverance. We celebrate them. One of my favorite assemblies was we had a couple of days where kids caught their teachers or staff in the building showing compassion, and they got to honor them at an assembly. And I wish everyone could have been there to see how honored the staff felt to have kids honor them. The other thing about inclusion I want to say that goes with the core values is, we are always looking for ways at Enfield to bring the community in, to encourage families to come out and see us. One of the things that went with the core values this year is we tried Fall Adventure. We did it during the day with kids. They engaged in trust building and team building activities, mixed grade levels. These were not paper and pencil tests. These were like put on a blindfold with a partner and build a team. Do an egg drop. And then in the evening we invited families in to join us. And it was very well received. We found ourselves having to run to the Dandy Mart for more pizza. And we also more eggs for the egg dropping activity. And it was great to see a turnout like that. The other thing about inclusion, I guess I want to share is the growth mindset piece, something that we're working towards with all staff and all students. Really talking a lot with kids this year about how they are at an age, all kids, where they can really grow their brain. And the way that they do that is by sticking with something and not giving up. So those are just a few of the things that come to mind. I know staff mentioned Celebration of Learning. It's our first one. It's next week on Thursday. And our intention is that all kids will have an opportunity to share something that day. And all kids will have an opportunity to visit other kids in their classrooms to share their learning that day. So we're very excited about that. Teaching and learning innovation. Across the district, the case study work is happening. Our teachers are also involved in it too. Have some very cool case studies going on. Our 5th grade did a leadership case study that's connected to building a creative play zone. We have our 1st graders studying sound and light. They want to build a sound and light garden outside. Our pre-K is partnering with a musician, so our pre-Kers are going to have music, I think from February to June, a couple times a week. The other thing I'm really proud of is our extended day program.
We have a longer extended day program, I think, than most other elementary schools. It's from 2 to 4:30 every Tuesday and Thursday. It's open to all kids in grades 3 through 5. Students actually get to self-select into 2 courses that they would like to take. And some of those courses are things like Spanish, mindfulness. We even have students now able to practice instruments during that time because our music teacher is one of the course instructors, which is great. Gives them an opportunity to practice if they don't have an opportunity to practice at home, and also gives parents a break from hearing the practice. I have an amazing librarian who has a makerspace, runs STEAM activities, has ongoing challenges. Our library at Enfield is never a quiet one, rarely an organized one. It's messy. Students are talking, they're busy. It's one of my favorite places actually to visit in the building. And of course, we've made an effort this year to have monthly assemblies, but really an effort to have them be more student-led instead of adult-directed, which has been a lot of fun. It's a time for a grade level to either share their learning or celebrate a value. We've had our 5th graders do one on leadership. Our 4th graders do one on renewable or non-renewable energy. Our 3rd graders most recently showcased their learning on human rights. So it's kids presenting for kids what they decide that they would like to show. The last topic I want to talk about is being culturally responsive. So we're, again, looking for ways to make sure that we're responding to all students. And one of the things we've learned in the last couple of years, and I have the data to show it, is that student-led conferences at Enfield bring out 90 to 100% family participation. So it's amazing. Our parents come out regularly when their kids are performing or talking about their learning. So it's something that we're growing. Right now it's in grades 3, 4, and 5, trying to also in our early grades at least have kids be part of that process, encouraging teachers to work with kids to have something to show. Our PTA has made an effort this year. They have a new face on their newsletter. We are naming an eagle. We have a new mascot. They are regularly trying to get a newsletter out, and they've done it once a month consistently, inviting people in, trying to post the activities. Some of my staff, mentioned the mental health clinic and some of the training that we've gone through. And I think that's a really important piece. And I know it's not just at Enfield. I know that we are getting kids everywhere that are coming to school with more trauma and toxic stress. And when people ask me, I was asked at the PTA meeting, what is it that's changed? Is it the leadership? Is it your teachers? Is it what is it? And one of my answers was, I think that some of our kids are changing. Our population is changing, and it matters. There's a lot to learn about a kid's brain who's coming to school, who's suffered from toxic stress. There's a lot of science behind why they're not operating on a level that's always ready to learn. And that's forcing us, I think it's forcing us all to rethink and do some re-strategizing with our learning environments and with our approach to students. So thank you again for having me.
But certainly, Lisa, you're going to finish and then we'll go to Mary, right? So typically we have an opportunity to ask questions and then we'll go to Mary.
Okay. well, Ann had her hand.
Ann, go ahead.
Just a quick question. In terms of like working with your families and building community within your school, what kind of strategies are you working with that?
That's a good question. So we are working a lot with the PTA. They're trying a lot of different things, asking, first of all, trying to reach out to the community and saying, what is it that you would like to have? So we're doing that. Trying to build in some more, I guess I would say a balanced approach to having families come in to participate in their children's learning in some way, but also having families come in to do things that are purely social, because we are a rural community and it is a place where a lot of people, we're building, right? And we have some big spaces. It's nice for people to be able to come out, socialize, parents meet parents, kids meet kids. So we're doing things like that as well. In terms of the mental health clinic, we sent out a survey actually to all of the parents to actually just see if we had one, if they would access it, or how they felt having one in the school. We had an overwhelming, very positive response to that. And that was great. Because there are some barriers for parents in accessing services who don't have transportation.
My question has to do, couldn't you give us some more details about the on-site mental health clinic? Like, what's
Sure.
going to happen when?
Sure. So they're with us right now.
Oh, they are?
Yep. They
Okay.
started, I think today was the second time they were with us. So what we did is we reached out to Tompkins County Mental Health. They do have satellite clinics in some surrounding districts. Basically, what you need to provide as a school is you need to provide a space. It's really, they provide a licensed mental health person, social worker. Basically, for our families, they've streamlined the intake. So the process for a family used to be I think 3 sessions before they even got admitted. They streamlined it to a 190-minute session downtown to do intake and paperwork. And then from that point on, family sessions and individual counseling sessions can happen all on site at the school. So right now, it's a couple hours every Tuesday. Just because we have a handful of families that haven't completed the intake process, as that grows, they will increase the hours. We have a chance to reevaluate this summer and grow it. I'm really hopeful that it's going to really take root. There seems to be a lot of families who are very interested.
Is that a grant?
No.
Are we
It's not
providing,
free to us.
are we providing the transportation for the families to get downtown?
Yes, we have told them that we will help them if they need it.
So it's provided by the county then? Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
A question I had was, your focus on success. Could you tell me or explain how you define success?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think what we did is we started with people defining a time in their lives when they felt particularly successful. So we started with staff, like a personal success, didn't necessarily have to be created, school-related. And groups of teachers got together and talked about that. And from their conversation with each other, they kind of pulled out the common threads of success. And then we sort of listed them. And then from there, we sort of went forward and had more discussions about what success then looks like in school.
Any other questions? Chris, you good? Okay. Lisa, obviously there's issues at Enfield, and we've heard I was, as you're well aware, we were out there at the PTA meeting the other night, and certainly we need more opportunities to have an opportunity to get together, to talk about Enfield, talk about the school, talk about families, and talk about, most importantly, the kids. I've heard a lot tonight about, and the other night was, well, Enfield needs more support. And we're going to be talking about the budget in a few minutes, and we're going to vote on it in a couple months. So I typically ask is, so you're not the only one. I ask. So what does Enfield need? What is, when talking supports, that's pretty broad. So what does Enfield need? I'm going to ask Mary the same thing. Well, I shouldn't have said that, Mary.
That's why I had her go first.
Yeah, I know. But typically, right, and we're going to ask, we ask every building leader. I mean, you run the buildings, and so, I asked Jason Trumbull and everyone. So what does Enfield need to?
I've thought a lot about it, and I think sometimes people mistakenly think that more support means more bodies, and I'm not quite sure that I always agree with that in classrooms. Sometimes I think it's not more hands, it's maybe more heads and sometimes more hearts working together. So to be real specific, I think that we need to continue to have professional development for all staff. And most important, our paraprofessional staff needs to join our teaching staff in that professional development to talk about things like kids who are coming to us who are suffering from chronic stress, to talk about alternatives to traditional discipline when traditional discipline doesn't work. So that is one thing that I would say that we need. I'll keep thinking.
Okay. And I'm sure, but we do, I certainly feel that we do need to have not only one, but several community conversations out in Enfield. Of course, I'm glad to go, but I'm not the one that should be talking out there. I prefer much to listen to the community come together and work on the issues. The population of Enfield has changed some. I know there is a county legislator here. There's buildings that are going up on that side of the lake that don't go up on the other side of the lake, and we don't need to. Everybody, I think, is pretty clear on that. That there's populations have shifted, and I think we need to be very aware that we need to be able to serve all the kids that are in that zone, and not only there but throughout the district. So we look forward to having more conversations, hearing more about what Enfield needs out there.
Can I ask one last question?
Sure.
Can I ask how the conversation went with the everyday anti-racism with your faculty?
Yes, so I did not include that because the kickoff of that book, we have snow day.
Okay.
That day, it's coming. So I didn't want to speak to something that didn't really happen yet, but actually, it's a great text, and I see using that particular book with staff over maybe several years. It's a lot of short vignettes with a lot of thoughtful questions and conversation happening, so I'm hoping that our next faculty meeting, that conversation will start to happen. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mary.
Great, thanks for having me. So I thought a lot about why school at Caroline, and then I was able to ask students last week, which was a wonderful experience to have a few students look at me wondering, as a principal, why I didn't know they were there. Then I said, well, I'm going to be speaking to the school board and the superintendent, so I want to get your impressions. And I said, oh, so we can learn, so we can be kind to each other. And then a student said to me, well, if you have kids, you can answer their questions, and then they'll get smarter. And that really resonated with me as someone who, there's no greater compliment if I asked my father a question and he didn't know the answer, and he'd say, "That's a good question. Let me think about that." That was something that really validated me. And then as I had the opportunity to a public education, then realized that maybe my dad and I would answer those questions differently. And that tension. And so I'm just going to read a quote from Bell Hooks, who is someone who continues to inspire me as I toy with why are we all of you, me, us, putting so much energy and passion into public education. We are rarely able to interact only with folks like ourselves who think as we do. No matter how much some of us deny this reality and long for the safety and familiarity of sameness, inclusive ways of knowing and living offer us the only true way to emancipate ourselves from the divisions that limit our minds and imaginations. Bell Hooks. So with that, I'll go to the highlights of inclusion, teaching and learning innovation, and culturally responsive practice at Caroline this year. I'll start by saying parents and caregivers have been incredibly supportive, and teachers continue to be willing to take risks and try and reflect on their practice daily, which I'm very grateful to get to work alongside people who are willing to do that. And so when we were looking at the highlights of inclusion, the first thing we looked at this year was to evaluate our mindset, and are we communicating that the most current research out of Syracuse University by George Theo Harris and Julie Costin show that, in fact, student achievement rises for all students when you have an inclusive program. And the second is, in this year, to not ignore the logistics of that. So as someone who likes to plunge into things, it's really helpful to have teachers say, well, wait a second, what about the schedule? What if we tweak the schedule so we could have more co-planning time? And so separating our mindset, given our commitment to inclusion, we will, as we evaluate problems, and then know that we have a structure logistically in the schedule to support it, was important. And then all of us accepting that and committing that students aren't going to have to leave their classroom to learn. And classroom learning and access will be in our community. And there are moments of challenge with that, and then there are moments of just sheer joy when a parent looks at you and says, I didn't think I'd ever get to hear my child's voice, because their children are now integrated and having the opportunity to communicate with their peers. So inclusion at Caroline continues to, we have high expectations around it, and so it continues to challenge us in ways that we just don't see coming sometimes, and it continues to inspire us too. Teaching and learning innovation. So case studies is a practice at the school that has been, has really helped us put children as leaders of their learning. And so the case studies aren't really case studies anymore, it's instruction. So it's been fun to see, to walk into a classroom and talk to a teacher about what's going on in their classroom, and they say it's a case study, but it's kind of, it's writer's workshop, but it's for the case study. So to see that it's integrated and it's not seen as one more thing to do has been really, really wonderful this year. And so within that is looking at Readers and Writer Workshop with Lucy Hawkins. That's been something that a number of teams are piloting. Also really embracing the concept of an authentic audience. So thank you for those of you who have volunteered even more time during the day to have students present their understanding of bridge design to you. That idea that you have an authentic problem and your audience that you're presenting to is also authentic. Whether it's other peers like Enfield is doing and families on the 22nd or going somewhere. And then another component of that this year is really embracing field studies and field experts and distinguishing between a field trip and a field study. And a field study being something we're going with the intent to learn something has been a priority. Lastly, the learning spaces, auditing the learning spaces to see does this learning space facilitate our commitment to inclusion? Does it facilitate our commitment to allowing students to sit by themselves if they need think time, to work with a group if they need that think, pair, share, peer instruction? So that involves, as a staff, looking at one another's spaces so that we can grow our understanding of and borrow or steal ideas from one another about what can work for kids. The last thing is the cultural responsive practice, or the last priority. So we started the year, as you know, Dr. Tatum came to read Why Do All the Black Kids Sit Together in the Cafeteria? And we were lucky enough to get seats for the whole Caroline staff to go to Cornell to Sage to hear her. And the first thing that was really powerful as an educator, to ride a school bus with 41 of your colleagues after a day of work, on a really warm day. I can't tell you, almost every adult said, I can't believe kids have to do this every day. So that's humbling, right? Being a kid is hard, and it's hard to end your day sometimes with a lot of the white noise or a lot of the noise of the bus. And I'm not advocating for air conditioning on all the buses, but it was hot. And so,
But the windows don't open?
So that, I share that because when we experience something as a human being, I think having empathy and being able to understand what we're asking kids to do, it's a helpful reminder as we go into this work. So after we were inspired by her in her talk, the staff and parents were also offered copies of the book. So as a staff, we were reading it, really focusing on her ABCs to affirm identity, to build community and cultivate leadership, and how does our work in the classroom do that in our work with families. And so with the equity mentors at the school, we've been much more intentional this year with having them lead conversations around the book, incorporate other articles like Unpacking the Knapsack of White Privilege by Peggy McIntosh, and having conversations about the implicit and implicit bias that we don't know that we have, and really having those conversations with each other. And then finally, I was inspired by our administrative PLC and getting to go to my colleagues' buildings on Monday mornings and do teaching and learning walks. It's been fabulous. And looking at how do spaces reflect student voice and student choice, and taking that and incorporating that into our culturally responsive work at the school has been paramount to making it better for our children.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Go ahead, Chris.
So you mentioned field studies, and it says here field experts. What's a field expert?
It's not
I'm
us.
so glad you asked. Well, it depends. It depends.
I could be a field expert.
Well, that's
You
true.
could be a field expert.
See?
Yeah, you could be.
So it's a field expert is someone that can answer your questions and tell you where to go for the course of study you're exploring. So say we're exploring building bridges, we're going to look at an environmental engineer, we're going to talk with a carpenter, we're going to try it. So those field experts are almost guides on the side as to how to engage with the problem.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to ask.
And go
I
ahead.
have an inclusion question for you. You said it's there's some fabulous things about it, and then there's some challenges. So I'm curious about what some of the challenges, but also how you're resolving those challenges. Like when you come up with a problem, how
Sure.
are you figuring out where to go next?
So I think one challenge that is really well-intentioned, so sometimes I'll see a student struggling in an inclusive setting. I'll say, oh, I know, we can do this, this, and this. And then we'll try it and it won't work. And I'll talk with the student and they'll say, that was an awful idea. Why didn't you ask me? So that's an example. Ask students, ask their families, how do they want their identity affirmed? How do they want to go about fixing this problem? So it's, we're all so excited about it that we throw out ideas to fix it right away, and we forget to ask the student.
And have you had good success with it? Has the child been able to give you?
Yeah. Kids.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. I think that their ability to think of different solutions and empathize with those around them surpasses
what an adult might be able to.
Well, I'll speak for myself, what I am able to do.
Well, this is a comment, an affirming comment about something that I'm really glad to see the mention of Lucy Calkins's Writers Workshop, which is dear to my heart. And even though her groundbreaking work was done 35 years ago, it's still a gold standard. And knowing that it's being integrated with the case studies and other parts of the curriculum is warms my heart.
Thank you, Mary. Just hearing you start off with Bell Hooks was great. She's one of my favorite writers. I really appreciated from your presentation, or just the work that you're doing, your intentionality. I think we can all talk about inclusion and the things that we want to do, but sometimes it's an afterthought and it's not at the center or the nucleus of the work that we're doing. So I appreciate that with the work. Also, I think it's really great to encourage your staff to take risks, because I think it's really easy to be comfortable and to do what's safe, and to know what results we'll get from doing things that are safe. So I think it's a great move to encourage our educators and our supporting staff to take those risks, as well as making time to reflect, to be able to say that was a bad thing I did, and not to just be reactionary and think about the next thing, but to take time to reflect. Question about culturally responsive practices. How would you say that you encourage your staff to engage in this material? Because this material is very complex, given what your identity is, given how comfortable you are with talking about privilege or being white or being middle class or lower class. How are you able to encourage your staff or to make that exciting to them, to unpack all that?
So I will say that it's a long process, and we're at the beginning this year. So We started with journals and reflecting and becoming aware of how you identify. Last year, we were reading a poem, read the poem, Who Am I, or I Am From. And so that we're growing an understanding of how we identify and understand that that changes and that will change. And it's almost as learning another language, like you think you speak a language and then you go and you hear other people speaking it that are fluent and you realize you don't know it. Being patient with yourself around that, because if you feel ashamed around that, then you won't make progress. So where is, what kind of emotions do you want to grow as you're doing that work? And giving yourself permission to feel that. And when I feel that we've been really well supported with some resources, such as when Shreki Holly came, and there's one thing that still sticks with staff and they still repeat it when we're in the PLC, and that is your first thought doesn't have to be your last. So when they're talking to one another and they're holding each other accountable to the conversations and the comments that are made, that, as Bell Hooks says, emancipates your thinking, that your first thought might not be something you're proud of, but hopefully your last thought puts you a little bit forward. Can I answer your question? Okay.
Anyone else? Brad still has a voice, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
So I guess I was an authentic audience. Yes, and Rob and I had the chance to see the 9 different bridge designs from 40 students.
Yeah.
And it was totally unfair to then have them ask us for money, by the way.
Well, I have to tell you, that's initiative right there. The student, that was all the students. Phenomenal. He went off the mic.
It was great to see. It was great to see it. Clearly, every child had participated to a level they were comfortable at, and you had them all speak. Every one of them, even if it was a short sentence, everybody had to get up and say something. And I thought, trying to bring the public speaking into it, presentation part was very important.
And that was a really well-designed lesson by a second grade team who embraces co-teaching, and they work really, really well with one another and intentionally, and they embedded Lucy Calkins' work on public speaking and writing. So thank you for noticing that. I'll pass that on to them.
That was excellent.
That was phenomenal. I loved it. It was great. The designs were great. The ideas were really neat. It was really fun to see the presentations.
I love the group that could say, well, maybe you can't build the one that we designed.
Exactly.
It was great.
But they weren't they took a risk, and they could say
they put it together
what
and they
worked
said,
and what
well,
didn't work.
maybe we couldn't actually do this. It was great.
You still need 3 bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, that was
right.
That was the ask. I mean, you need 3 bridges.
3 bridges.
Yeah. And it's
But now they get to see it too. Make it concrete. I mean, it's great.
Thank you.
not out of concrete, but
No, I mean,
just
sorry.
No, the DC won't like
No,
that.
I know,
No
it's-
concrete,
it's a watershed brand. Pat, anything you got?
I love hearing about both schools and taking a lot in, and that's about all for tonight.
Anything else for folks that have worked all day and need to go back? So we did hear from the second graders, and I told them after several months of very interesting meetings here, it was the best meeting that I've been in this room for quite a while. And there's several of the students, I think we're student advisory to the finance committee. We know their names, but they were all they can explain economics
and
and.
very polite because they sent thank you notes too.
Well, it's right here. I do appreciate that. So let the kids know it's very much appreciated. We don't often get thank you notes. I'll just point that out. Just saying.
Just like we don't get applause very often.
No, you do applause. You do. But anything? So Mary, so 3 bridges, but there anything else, Caroline? That you're. Any ask that before you go?
I think I know you're grateful for the professional development opportunities that continue to be offered, the opportunity for teachers to innovate and have that recognized and supported, like in the Caroline Wilderness Academy. That is outstanding that will continue for the students. That's we just need more. We need some
more of everything. More of the same.
More of the same.
Okay. We're hearing that a lot. So we're going to hear from Amanda shortly. So thank you both. Thank you for everyone that's here now.
Thank you. Some rest break.
And Amanda Verba is going to talk budget.
This will be brief. Thank you all for sticking with us until the end. I will have, most likely at Finance Committee, Angela Jordan, for those of you that don't know, she is the brains of the operation. She's absolutely tirelessly working on Saturdays and Sundays. If you drive by the district during budget season, she's here. A lot of times I'm here too, and we have been not only attending meetings, hearing from the community about the concerns, meeting with every single director and principal about their budgets, and we're trying to pull that all together. And that does take a lot of work and a lot of give and take and a lot of collaboration. You're going to see in the budget, as I said, we'll have sort of the line by line ready to go probably for the Finance Committee meeting. That'll give us plenty of board meetings before the April 24th deadline to pass it as a board. And you're going to see some give and take. There's principals and directors in this room that know that we all started with sort of our grand ideas, and we've sort of trickled them down to say, well, what is actually sustainable? What is realistic? What can we do? How can we wrap PD around it? Where do we need to go? And as you all know, the key to all of this is the people, but there's also that little bit of thing called revenue, right? So revenue is really what sort of drives the ideas, sustains the ideas. As I've said before to many people, it's very easy to design a budget from one year to the next. We could absolutely take every single request and fund it and go into the fund balance, raise taxes. We could do all those things if we wanted to, but the reality is that we're here for the long term, and we want to make sure that whatever we create, whatever we continue, or whatever we evaluate to say, you know what, although it might be tradition, it may not be something that we're going to continue due to value and the valuation of it. We want to make sure that those decisions, have students learning in an inclusive, culturally competent environment, and we want to do it for the long term. We don't want to just do it year to year. So, with that said, I do want to talk a little bit about two of the major aspects of revenue in terms of taxes and the reserves and fund balance. We've been, as a group, talking a lot about levies and rates and assessed values, and I just want to make sure that everybody sort of is on board with the language. And I'm sort of doing something that business officials tend to not like to do, just because we realize that we're all colleagues in this business, and there was some questions though about our tax rates in comparison to other places. What is the levy compared to that rate? And so I just want to do something a little visual here, and Jen, if you can go to the next slide. I tried to pull together over the area or the region, sort of the tax rates for the different districts. And I want to explain what that is. And I'll get there sort of by starting with what is the levy. So the levy is really what the business official is sort of always is concerned with, because that's the major revenue line in the budget, especially for Ithaca. Some other communities, the levy is a small amount of their budget because they rely on state aid. We actually rely on our levy, right? And so our levy is the amount of money that we can raise via property taxes that would then go into our revenue to be able to balance our budget, okay? In our district, that's the largest portion. We have right now currently about $126 million. 87 million of that is the tax levy, or 83 to 87 million is the tax levy. And so that levy amount that we calculate based on a formula that is prescribed by the state, we are staying within the taxable levy amount that is allowed by the state for the tax cap calculation. We have not gone above the tax cap for a number of years, and we do not need to go above the tax cap going into next year. So we will remain within the tax cap and be able to levy the amount of taxes to balance our budget within that tax cap. So that means that all the rebates that people look forward to, making sure that we don't have to get a super majority to pass our budget, we will actually be working within those parameters for our levy amount. And so our levy, we've already submitted that to the state. I vetted it a number of times, and we know we're going to have $87.5 million to be able to use as revenue from our tax base. The tax base is our total assessed value, right? So that's the total amount of all the property value in the community, land, businesses, homes, and that's all put together. That's given to us by our county assessor. He gives us sort of an anticipated assessed value every single year. Right now he's saying it's about $5.1 billion for Ithaca. That's an increase from last year because if you haven't noticed, there's a lot of growth and development in Ithaca City School District and where we're able to tax. Okay, so as that taxable assessed value goes up, and this is not just for Ithaca, this is any community. Typically, as that assessed value goes up each year, when you take your levy and you create a formula to compare that to the the total assessed value, you come up with a rate as a homeowner. And a rate is every $1,000 that my home is worth, I pay a certain rate for that, right? And so if my home is $100,000, you would take that $17.16 and multiply it by, the 1,000 units, so 100 of those units to get to that. And that's what your school tax bill shows you. And so these lines here are the rates across the community, okay? And Ithaca, I did it alphabetically so that there was no favoritism one way or the other. It just so happened we're in the middle of the graph. And so these are folks that are in TST BOCE's community, and I just wanted to show sort of, where we are. So as you can see, there are some communities where their taxable total assessed value may not be going up. There might not be a lot of development. So when they're doing their levies, there's not a lot of, monies being added to that taxable assessed value. That's when rates will go up. For Ithaca, because our taxable assessed value, our total assessed value continues to grow, it's been really helpful for us to be able to take budgets to the public that actually your tax rate has been going down at a constant rate, which is really nice. And we anticipate that again. This green line is the anticipated rate. So currently we're at $17.48, and we anticipate that we'll be moving down to about $17.16 for every $1,000 that your home is valued at. Okay? And so that's, for us, very good news, because this means that we're still able to do the business of education, we're still able to increase our revenue in terms of our levy, but that's not an impact for the taxpayers, and in fact, it's a decreased impact to the taxpayers. The only little catch here is if you get reassessed. If you get reassessed and your taxable value of your home goes up, which mine just did, right? Because we did a little, little something there near the garage, and my good friend, the tax assessor, sort of saw that as they were driving by, taking pictures, and said, "Aha!" And I'm sure it had to do with the building permit too, right? So they track those things, and so of course, if your assessed value goes up, that is not the district's fault. It's not the assessor's fault either. That means that you have more value to your home. And so, as you know, we're sort of on an, I think, every 3-year kind of turn for neighborhoods, and you'll see some revaluation of your homes. So again, I think that this is a really good news for those of us, that are sort of looking at these tax rates and knowing that Ithaca, is a wonderful community, but, home prices, we all know, continue to go up. So if there's any way that we can sort of help, and still do business, this is good news for us. So that green line is I think, a real positive. The other thing that we look forward to is our fund balance and our reserves. When I came in a few years ago, I know that the state had really put not just the tax cap parameters on school districts, but they took away state aid that was due to districts. Districts were expecting and anticipating this aid to be returned, and it never was. And so a lot of districts like Ithaca, so that there wasn't massive layoffs, so there wasn't massive cuts in program, they looked to their fund balance and reserves to sustain operations. And that's not really the way that you want to long-term manage your fund balance and reserves, because the fund balance and reserves are like a savings account, right? You want to manage them properly, and they're not there. If you're going into your savings account every single year to sort of sustain the operations of your home, right, that savings account will dwindle. It will go away. It will diminish. Unless you have a plan to put money back into it and make deposits. It's the same thing with the school district on a grander scale. Then our savings accounts, there are some that have very specific rules to them, and others that sort of have a little bit more flexibility in terms of the way that we can use them. As you can see, each year we sort of, since 2014-15, we've very intentionally and very cautiously looked at the way that we develop our budget, ensure that there are reserves and fund balances utilized in a proper manner, so that, for example, in the retirement contribution reserve, we actually drew from that last year to balance our budget, but we were able to refund that money again, so that we'll be able to use it again the following year to be able to pay for some of our retirement contributions for our Employees Association folks. We've been able to continue to maintain our capital reserve. This is the line where we sort of purchase all of our buses. We don't go to the general fund for our buses. That's actually something that comes from a reserve for a very particular purpose. And if we don't refund it, the monies will dwindle. So we continue to sort of make sure that we have that, fully funded. And we've used assigned fund balance. Assigned fund balance is the fund balance that we actually determine from the large pot how much we think we would like to put into the budget for things that we maybe will know will happen, like if families move into our community and they have special needs and we need to hire more staff to support those young people, we want to have that money built into the budget. We always build in fund balance into our budget for our facilities. Nobody expected that we would have the issues around water, the flooding that Dr. Brown talked about, issues with heating or cooling. We want to make sure when a well goes, we want to make sure that we have the monies available to be able to, work on those. So a lot of our assigned balance is used that way. Then we also have other things, the what-ifs of a school district, right? You have to plan for those too, because sometimes those what-ifs do happen. So we've used assigned fund balance every year to balance that budget, and we've done it in such a way that we've been able to, at the end of the year, actually either recommit it to balance the budget or be able to put it into our reserves and fund balance and continue to grow them. So, I want to give those factors because I want to say that the budget is really very close to being balanced this year. There's not a lot of drama around the budget. It's pretty quiet, and it's actually a good thing because we've had a lot to talk about, a lot of important things to talk about at board meetings. But I want you to know that we've been working quite diligently on it. It includes professional development. It includes staffing to address the needs of young people. It includes enhancements of staffing to address the needs of young people and the concerns that have been brought forward to the board. Dr. Brown has been working with the principals and directors. Liddy Coyle, myself have been working with principals and directors. We've had really enhanced the budget process to really look at staffing early on. We're already talking about enrollment numbers, using the demography study to sort of drive our decision making, looking at inclusion and what does that mean in terms of building independence with young people, and how are we going to sort of look at that in terms of a budget, and what does that mean for us? Is it PD? Is it people? Is it both? And so I think, when you look at the budget the next time, when I'm going to have more specific line items, I think you're going to see that this balance of the tax levy, the balance of the reserve usage and fund balance, along with the real creative problem solving and planning and intentional time spent on budgeting, I really think that we're going to have a budget that's going to, try to address a lot of the issues that we've talked about. So that's just the budget update for right now. We're quite ahead of where we usually are in terms of the whole budget document. So I'm eager to share that at Finance. It'll be great.
Great. Any questions, Tom? We'll
I actually
Tax
have
levy and
one question.
On one slide, yes.
And I apologize if this was covered in finance and I don't go to finance. Not everyone goes to policy.
I was
So-
thinking the same thing.
You're always thinking the same thing. So one of the things I've been, because I sit on the TST BOCES board for board members, and one of the things that came up in February, and I apologize because I missed the March meeting, I did get an update on that, was that the expenses we pass through BOCES to have them be BOCES aidable. So apparently Andrew Cuomo doesn't like the fact that he can't control how much money he gives to BOCES, so he is either talking about or is capping how much we can, how much reimbursement we can get to, like, within the tax levy. Has that impact, have you thought about that? Is that going to impact the budget?
Well, I'll turn it over to legislative action first, and then I'll answer it from sort of a budget perspective.
So the governor proposed a number of freezes or caps. BOCES is one, 2%. So if you want to add a service, you're going to have to cut something else out at BOCES. I mean, really, isn't that what the 2% means? If they decide there's a great service we all want to add, that runs their budget up more than 2%, then you're going to have to actually cut something.
So BOCES budget,
Is
but
capped.
TST
BOCES
can't increase by more than 2%
That's the
year
proposal.
over year.
That's the proposal.
I thought we can't pay more than 2%.
But if all the components can't pay more than 2%.
Yeah, exactly. Then they're, yeah.
The-
But we can't take on more services, essentially.
Right, essentially, that's what it comes to, Pat.
Yeah.
And then his budget also proposed that transportation costs be capped at a 2% increase. I mean, as we sit here today, that's probably not a problem for us, but I can't predict fuel costs 6 months from now.
Yeah.
And that one makes no sense at all. And we buy 10% of our bus fleet every year. So it's kind of the same number, just going up slightly. Some school districts go out and lease their whole fleet every 7 years or something. So they've got 6 years with almost no change in expenditure, and then a big jump. So that would hurt a lot of districts just in the way they manage their transportation, and there's the risk that the fuel costs go up with it. And then my favorite is the building aid capped 2% statewide. So be the first one to get your project in and get it approved, because once they get to 2%, they'll stop approving projects. Or they'll approve it and tell you your aid's going to go down. So that one's very problematic, because you don't know where you stand in the queue. When I'm joking about getting it in first, as you know, even though you may submit it on a particular date, if there's questions, if there's yours may not go through as quickly as someone else's, and the queue shifts, and then you're just told, well, there you go, your project's approved, but you're not going to get an aid increase. In fact, we're going to decrease your aid because the state went up to 2% already. The Assembly bill eliminates all of those, doesn't have any of them. But as you know, it's all a negotiation going forward.
So just want to say one advocacy question on that. It is something that NISBA's advocating on, and they do send us those advocacy alerts. So when we forward those, it will have that. So definitely
There's one.
fill it out. Yeah, just fill it out, because it's important that they hear about it. And it was one of the issues that came up in that legislative session that we went up to at BOCES, and all the districts would find this alarming. This would be a very bad thing.
So the only thing for business officials, obviously, BOCES budget is a budget within a budget. So you budget your general fund for all the work that happens at all of our campuses that, the folks that work there get the paycheck that says Ithaca City School District, and then you budget for the folks that get the paycheck that says TST BOCES, and we have a lot of students there as well. We consider that to be an extension of our campus, but it's a budget within our budget. Within that budget, obviously, the same way that I described our budget, you have sort of those tiers of sort of contingencies, or you have the planning. Well, what happened, and we've already started talking about it, is that the business official at BOCES would really have to start to really look at very almost a targeted cost, and determine really, instead of sort of placing maybe some contingencies with them, that the contingencies would remain with the district, and then you sort of more pay as you go. We do get rebates back from BOCES for all the money that we don't spend with them. So again, it's either going to be with them in the budget, and that gets moved to them, and then we get it back at a rebate, or we actually just build the budget, hold the monies in Ithaca, and then move the monies as necessary there. So we do have some flexibility in terms of the way that we would budget if that 2% goes through. On the flip side, the one thing that we've been a proponent for with BOCES is that we only get aid on the first $30,000 of some salaries. So, that has been for years.
It's all the career and technical education.
Exactly, and so it's really ridiculous for a school district to continue to want to utilize BOCES, get aid back, but only get a certain amount of aid that's capped already. So an additional cap just seems illogical, and so that's another, sort of like, how can you continue to sort of roadblock us when we're trying to find ways to utilize taxpayers' dollars the best we can?
I have a snarky comment, but it's directed at Albany, but I'll just pass.
It's okay, they do monitor us, but
I'm not afraid.
We are going to hear from BOCES. They will be at finance then here?
That's correct.
And then here.
That's correct, yeah.
The administration.
So we can talk about that
BOCES.
there as well.
Okay. Anything else right now?
No, thank you.
Okay, good. No. Thank you, Amanda, not good. Thank you. We do have more business, and we're going to keep rolling. Are we good to keep rolling? Okay.
Advocacy for everybody.
Yeah, we're, another advisory council, is that what I'm saying? School district business?
School district business,
Establish a district early childhood advisory council. I need someone to speak to that, or we're not voting on it, or we are voting on it?
I can speak that. What time is it?
It's 5 o'clock.
It could wait till the next time if you'd rather. But we just to give you what we're working on. Eldred and I've been working for the last couple of years actually now on issues pertaining to early childhood, in an informal way. And we've been working with Daphne this year, and with Caitlin last year, and with Deb Jordan. And it's just an incredibly important area. We've been pulling in community partners. Tompkins County Community Action, and various daycare centers, and all the organizations that are dealing with various stakeholders that are working with the early childhood. And one of the things we've discovered is that there are fantastic things going on in the community, but a lot of silos. So the idea of this committee is, among other things, to kind of figure out what's out there, because eventually all these folks and kids end up as our kids, and we're only able to serve some of them. So better understanding the landscape. So I don't know if you want to do it this time or wait until Eldred's here next time. But we want to, because we want to be doing more work on it, we thought it would be good to bring it to the board where it would have more exposure to what we're working on, and if we make recommendations, there'd be something to kind of bring.
So I'm hearing you want to punt it.
What's that?
You want to punt it.
It seems like it's late. And we will be continuing to work with or without an advisory council.
We can bring it back, but
we'll bring it back, but maybe for the next time we can put it on, and hopefully you guys take a look at it if you have any questions.
The guys that put the agenda together can work on that, right? I guess, whoever that may be.
So we table it?
I'll move to table.
Second.
All in favor? That's everyone. And tabling means it comes back at the next meeting? Just to be clear, when we do vote to table, that does come back. So, all right?
Yeah.
And And there are some other items, the BOCES capital project tax cap exemption resolution.
I'll move to approve resolution expressing strong support for approval by the legislature and Governor Cuomo of Bill number A09825/S07730 as presented.
Second. We all want to second that.
We did this last year.
Yeah.
You'll recall that the Assembly and the Senate unanimously approved this bill last year, and the governor vetoed it. In theory, the bill has been redrafted to answer the governor's complaint.
Objections.
It is being represented. We expect it will go through the Assembly and the Senate, but we need to show our support.
And there's no guarantee that the governor will sign it because...
No, but you got to keep the pressure on.
Right.
You got to keep going.
There are 7 whereases, just counting. It's moved, seconded. All in favor? We're good. And Moira, there are a few policies that are second readings.
Well, Pat and I, in Sean's absence, I think Pat's going to take the lead on this.
So these are second reads on the student health services and the school immunization policy. So we have looked these over in committee, and I will move policy 55420, student health services, for second reading and adoption.
Second.
I'm Moira. So we went through these fairly extensively in public session last time?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
And the edits were...
On this one, very minor.
were minor and also indicated on the...
Right. Put it up? Yeah,
I
would
think
you put it?
you should put them both up. So the edits were, first of all, the primary mission of the Ithaca City School District Health Services is to prevent and/or remove health barriers to learning. We knocked out that line and said the Ithaca City School District is committed to implementing school-based health interventions as a way to improve students' academic achievement, well-being, and quality of life. And then we broke up the health services that our office offers into bulleted points so that it would be more clear.
Well-being is presented as one word and is a hyphenated
It is. I thought it was hyphenated, and I checked it out. It is one word.
It's presented as both in the resolution.
Oh, okay.
I was commenting
I can't
that
see it.
One on top of the other.
Okay.
Oh, well-being and well-being.
Just
Okay.
suggesting that.
I
we
looked
might
it up.
want
It's
to-
no hyphen.
It's over on the left-hand side,
Okay.
so we
Thanks,
removed the
Brad.
hyphen. Boy, all us policy people missed that glaring inconsistency.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brad.
It's new, just another set of eyes that is not deeply into it, all right?
You know, just being able to step back and perhaps not be so immersed in policy as we are. The 2,000-foot view flying above the clouds. Thank you, 10,000.
And there was one other thing that doesn't show up as an edit, but it said simply that there would be student health appraisals. One of the items was listed as employment, and we had some questions about what does that mean. Well, it turns out it basically means what students have to get working papers, a health appraisal, or so.
And they can go to a school nurse as long as there is an annual physical on file, which there is supposed to be for every student. So it is one of the many services that is provided by the district.
Thanks, the Rockstar Policy Committee for getting this one done. It is done, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Everyone fine?
Yes.
All in favor? Move seconded, right? And finally, the last.
Okay, I move policy 5422, school immunization policy, for second reading and adoption.
Second.
And in this case, while Jennifer is getting this up on the screen, what we basically did was strike out most of a paragraph which was highly redundant of material that was in 5420, and just leave one sentence.
Right, and that's in...
And this has to do with what happens with unimmunized students in in the case of an outbreak. Now, there's been a lot of discussion of this policy in policy committee meetings. This is basically a recap of New York State law and New York State regulations and recommendations of best practices when the charge is given to the school districts to determine medical or religious exemptions. These are the guidelines that are given to New York State. And one thing that we did do is highlight what parents can do when they disagree with the findings of the district, because that was not clear in our policy. So when the district makes a determination, they may appeal within 30 days to the Commissioner of the New York State Education Department in accordance with New York Education Law 310.
Any questions? Comments?
This is just a weird question, but we're looking at this and it's got all the cross-outs. When we vote on it, I'm presuming we're voting for the copy that doesn't have all the...
Right, right. The cross-outs will disappear. There was an expression. There was an expression by a number of board members that they wanted to see what we did in committee, because people can't always remember word by word what we've done to the policies.
And even if I've done
the
changes, I don't remember.
No, this is very helpful to us too. So that, again, we're just taking out repetitive language, but keeping in the sentence that unimmunized students may need to be excluded from school for the duration of a communicable disease. We did have a question in the last policy committee meeting of what happens in the case of an outbreak to medically fragile students, because if a student has an exemption and thus is not immunized to whatever disease is breaking out, the district does exclude them. So for medically fragile children, they are not necessarily excluded. It depends upon the nature of the outbreak and the nature of their fragility, and whether or not they have been able to be immunized against a particular disease. So just if people want more information about that, I've got it. Kathy sent it, but it doesn't directly affect the workings of this policy or the impact.
And the policy is the policy. It is not the procedures of how anything.
It is not the procedure.
It is not the procedures.
Just to be clear. Any other questions? We've been over it several times. Move seconded, all in favor. That is everyone. And I can't believe there's any other business items, but I'll entertain. But I think we basically have everything. There's a few things, Dr. Brown, that we talked about the other day, but...
Yeah, I can push it to the next thing. Yeah, we do wish to update the board and the community about where we are with having conversations at the high school and our secondary schools. We've had some conversations with administrators and the community about how to organize facilitated conversations around issues that our young people brought to us last month. And we also have made some headway on developing anti-marginalization, anti-oppression curriculum. We have a plan and an approach to doing that that will be much like what you heard tonight. So we'll bring that back to the board also.
Excellent, Dr. Brown. Not seeing anyone that's, Nicole has her check-in on already, go down. Not seeing any other items that, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for your patience and perseverance and hard work.